I was wrong about the New York Islanders. I was wrong. If you look at the New York Islanders 10-game winning streak, and they keep surprising me. They keep surprising a lot of people. And on paper, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, yes, I think a lot of Islanders fans would argue that they had the confidence going in. I would argue against that. I think looking at Twitter and just kind of seeing a lot of the platforms, a lot of fans had anger towards Lou Lamoriello. A lot of fans had anger towards losing Robin Leonard and getting a guy like Semyon Varlamov. They just didn't have the trust in that. So I think in this video, that's what I'm going to talk about. What is making sense for the New York Islanders and why, as I make this video, they've established a 10-game winning streak. Obviously, things change moving forward. But as of right now, I have to say I was wrong with the New York Islanders. Could they be the Buffalo Sabres of last year? Sure. But at the very least right now, they're proving teams wrong. They're beating good teams. They've beaten the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've beaten the Winnipeg Jets twice. They've beaten the St. Louis Blues. The games that they have lost against really good teams have been one-goal games. They lost to the Washington Capitals by 1 goal. So a 10-game winning streak, they're beating decent teams. Yes, they've beat some poor teams. They've beaten some weaker teams like the Ottawa Senators, but they've also beaten good teams. So if you look at their goaltenders, they're riding about a 2 goals against average. And for Thomas Greiss, a 9.37 save percentage. Semyon Varlamov, a 9.29 save percentage. Obviously, that's going to change, so don't look too much into those numbers. But when you're riding save percentages like that are definitely above average, as well as in around a 2 or lower goals against average. Again, if they were both below a 2 goals against average, a tandem like that, that's already good that one's right on 2 goals against per game. Yes, save percentage for me is more reliable. How much shots your defense allows, because at the end of the day, goals against, if your defense is only allowing 20 shots per game, again, that's unrealistic, and you're still allowing 2 or 3 goals per game. That's still not great. And a 10-game winning streak in that 15 games, that's insane. So if they're not going to keep riding 10 wins per 15 games. Over a 60-game span, that would be 40 wins. 40 wins through 60 games, that's 80 points with 22 games left. That would be absolutely ridiculous, but I'm kind of just putting perspective. That would be like Tampa Bay Lightning pace right there. So that's not going to happen, I don't think, for this New York Islanders team, but I have to say I am wrong about this New York Islanders team. I thought they would start out slow. I thought losing a guy like Robin Leonard would be kind of slow for them to begin with. I did think Matthew Barzal would bounce back, and he has bounced back. He has started really well. You're talking about a guy that didn't have the year that some Islanders fans expected, but the team was just kind of a team, and that's still their storyline. The New York Islanders still are a team that, to me, they just don't really have that superstar. Yes, you could call Barzal an upcoming superstar, but at this very moment, he has other players that are contributing at least the same, or in some cases more. Devon Taves, Ryan Pulock, Johnny Boychuk, Nick Leddy. So, I mean, they have the depth on defense. Yes, there was a concern going in, but they didn't change a lot of things. Yeah, in my opinion, they didn't get better. On paper, that is. But again, that's why I'm saying I'm wrong in this sense, that I didn't think they were going to have a good start. Could they still miss the playoffs? You saw what happened to the Buffalo Sabres last year. A lot can change. A lot can fall through. Is the trust there for a guy like Barry Trotz? Can Lou Lamoriello make the necessary changes? He didn't acquire a guy like Artemi Panarin through free agency. He didn't acquire a guy like Matt Duchene through free agency. Fans wanted those big moves to happen. They didn't happen. And now it's down to Lou Lamoriello to improve this team throughout the season. For a team like this, it was proven last year with the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, you have the point of don't fix what ain't broke, but also not to get too comfortable. You've seen it time and time again. Some teams have these huge starts, or they feel like they're in a comfortable position once it cuts into January, February, March, and they flop. They flop because they get too comfortable. It's a storyline in hockey. It's a storyline in sports, and it could be in different scenarios. You saw what happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They got too comfortable. They didn't play important games down the stretch in the last month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was, and they go into the first round and get swept by Columbus. So I think for the Islanders, yes, that's a completely different scenario. I don't think the Islanders have that skill set on their team, but they're a team dynamic. They're the first team, I would say, right now to kind of develop a solid goalie tandem where you're actually splitting games. Like, if you look from Anaheim all the way down to the Vegas Golden Knights, you don't see a team having a solid goalie tandem. Yes, maybe weaker teams, but I'm talking about a playoff team. If you're looking at all the playoff teams from last year, they had a legit starter. They had one starter that played all their games or majority of their games. That wasn't the case for the New York Islanders. They had 2 goalies last year, just like they do this year, where you can say, hey, if Robin Lehner has a weak game, Thomas Greiss goes in. And for this year, same thing. If Varlamov plays weak or Varlamov has a bad stretch of games, you're comfortable putting a guy like Thomas Greiss in the net. That can't be said for a lot of teams. Yes, a team like the Boston Bruins, you could argue a guy like Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak, but that's different. At the end of the day, you're not going to see Yaroslav Halak playing playoff games, where for the New York Islanders, you could see both of Varlamov and Thomas Greiss playing playoff games if it gets to that point. Yes, at the end of the day, if I'm just kind of going on a rant here in my expectation for this Islanders team, if you were to go in the playoffs, for Barry Trotz, an ideal situation would be to have one goalie to ride, one goalie to build that confidence on. Yes, but I think for this case of the team, they have the depth up front. They don't rely on one guy. They rely on this whole team. It was kind of the storyline of what happened to the Vegas Golden Knights coming into their first year, but now that's a little different because you have guys like Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty that join the fold of guys like William Karlsson, John Marchessault, Riley Smith. For the New York Islanders, they haven't gotten that. If they acquired guys like Panarin and Duchesne potentially through free agency, which would have been insane, then that would have been a different story. But they still have, for me, 5 or 6 guys that are kind of on the same tier. They're not a superstar, but they're like the next guys up. The next guys up that on a Stanley Cup team, they would potentially be on that second line. And that goes back to the names of Nelson, Lee, Beauvillier, guys like that are not superstars in any sense, but they're coming together and actually putting up production consistently throughout. And I don't think you're going to see a big gap like, for example, in New Jersey when they made the playoffs. You're not going to see that gap from Taylor Hall to the next scorer. I think at the very most you might see a 15, 20 point gap between maybe like guys like Barzal and Bailey to the next kind of crop. I think Brock Nelson and Anders Lee might be up there as well, but you kind of get my point. There's not going to be a big gap in your top 6 or top 9 scorers if you're looking at the perspective of the New York Islanders. And for the defense, it's the same thing. Yes, you've wanted more from Nick Leddy, Pulock, Devon Taves. You get different aspects. Devon Taves, he goes on the power play, but he doesn't necessarily have those big shutdown roles. Ryan Pulock, bigger body, also can play on the power play. Johnny Boychuk, a veteran, has that rocket of a shot. He is slowing down. And then Nick Leddy has been super inconsistent. For a guy like Jordan Eberle, I mean, that's the other concern. For the New York Islanders, you don't want guys getting hurt because then it becomes an issue. Yes, you have that depth, but for a guy like Jordan Eberle, he's also a wild card too. Can he be up there with 2 guys like Barzal and Josh Bailey from what we've seen to start? Potentially. I think Jordan Eberle, for me, is super underrated. I think he's always been underrated, and we saw how well he played in the playoffs for the time that the New York Islanders were in the playoffs last year. So Jordan Eberle is definitely another name to look out for. So this is kind of, it's not a rant because I think it's a positive thing. Yes, I am admitting in some sense I am wrong. I didn't have the New York Islanders in a playoff team. You can check out my prediction video. I had them fairly low. I didn't have them just outside either. I thought for a team that was missing like the Carolina Hurricanes or Columbus Blue Jackets, I thought they would be ahead. And that was kind of my hot take too. I thought that the Pittsburgh Penguins would bounce back, and it looks like they will be. And I also had the Philadelphia Flyers potentially making it over the Hurricanes. And that was my hot take. Obviously, this is a channel where I kind of try to take bold takes, and I thought the Philadelphia Flyers going in, and still could be, a playoff contender. But right now, I'm looking at the Carolina Hurricanes and New York Islanders, and it's kind of the storyline last year. 2 teams that were underestimated. I think the Carolina Hurricanes coming into this year weren't underestimated, but for the New York Islanders, I think that's still the case. They're still getting over Tavares. I think they are over Tavares, but I think he's still in their mind, and I think at the end of the day, when they do win and they continue to win and potentially a Stanley Cup, I'm not saying that's going to happen this year. I'm just saying that's going to be in their mind where John Tavares, the captain, left their team, and they have a lot of, I would say, motivation to kind of make the point that they don't need a guy like that, where they can do it as a team and win as a team. So I think that's the New York Islanders dynamic. I think that's their team dynamic. Again, back to their 2 goalie tandem, back to the depth on defense, and the forward group that, and like I said, Jordan Eberle, Matthew Barzal, Anders Lee, Josh Bailey, Beauvillier, like those kind of guys, Brock Nelson, those are the kind of guys that wouldn't have this huge role on other teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Boston Bruins. But the next guys up, and 6 or 7 of them on this New York Islanders team are the next up together. So thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think. Again, I'm going to admit I am wrong about the New York Islanders right now. Things could change, but they are impressing me. They're impressing a lot of people. And to be honest, I'm actually excited to see what happens because, again, it's a really good storyline, and they are an exciting team to watch. Hopefully attendance does improve for them as well. I think that has been an issue in past. There was some kind of storyline through the New York Islanders Ottawa Senators game where like tickets were like $6. Again, we're not going to read too much into that. New York Islanders fans, get to those games. New York Islanders fans, be excited for your team. I think they're doing well right now. But hey, are they a make it? Are they a flop? Could they be a team like the Blue Jackets of last year, or the Carolina Hurricanes, or themselves of last year? Or could they be the Buffalo Sabres where they won 10 games in a row early on and then flop on the second half of the year? So thank you. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Drop a like. Comment your thoughts. This was John from Hot Take Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.